Thank you. We just heard Secretary James talk about the importance of stories. And boy, do I have a story for you. I would argue with myself whether Dr. Martine Rothblatt was the most creative person on the planet. But since the passing of Steve Jobs, she no longer has any competition. She's a lawyer, an MBA, a PhD, and she started her career with Covington and Burling as an attorney here in DC. But Martine's life has been about reaching for the stars, literally. Her passion is in space and satellites. And she left Covington and spent the next decade creating 3 satellite companies, the third one being what is today Sirius XM. And after taking Sirius public, the reality of being a parent collided with her dream when her youngest daughter developed what at the time was a fatal lung disease. Martine has casually said, "I did what any parent would do. I quit my job and I tried to find a cure." Well, Martine did what only Martine can do. She found a cure. She used the resources from Sirius and her brilliance and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I'm sure, and in the next several years found and developed a drug that cured the life of not only her daughter, but thousands of others. And that drug was the genesis of what today is United Therapeutics, a biotech company that actually makes money. When Martine is not spending time with United Therapeutics, she has a few hobbies. We also heard about the importance of hobbies. Well, she plays the piano, she flies her own helicopter, she has been the executive producer on 2 movies, and she has written a few books on subjects as diverse as a solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, achieving immortality through science and technology, and the fluidity of gender identification. And speaking of gender, in the 90s, Martine was on her own personal courageous journey, transitioning from a man to a woman. And it's wonderful that today's theme, Powerful as One, Unstoppable Together, because as Martine will be the first one to tell you, none of this would have been possible without the support of her spouse of over 30 years, Bina Rothblatt. To say that they are a happily married couple is an understatement. As Martine told Howard Stern a few years ago, the 2 of them are so close that, quote, "you can't fit a feather between them." To their 4 adult children, there's no Martine and there's no Bina. There's just Marbina. Now, as you can imagine, Martine is an incredibly intimidating person to talk to, except she's not. She's the warmest, friendliest, most open and genuine person you'll ever meet. So it is a true pleasure and an honor to introduce my friend, Dr. Martine Rothblatt.
Well, thank you, John. That's kind of like my whole speech right there. I'm not sure, I'm not even sure who that person is, that are like 10 people that you described, but it was the most beautiful introduction I've ever had, John, so thank you so much. And John and I have been friends now for just about 2 decades. with his amazing better half, Karen. It's a huge honor for me to be able to be at this event today, especially this important anniversary of an organization that has done so much good for so many years. I'm just in awe of everything that you have accomplished, and I believe that we have a much, much healthier, happier national capital area because of the work of the Women's Center. I'm totally humbled to be following the Secretary of the Air Force. She does such an important job. You know, it's an extremely dangerous world out there with some very crazy people. And thanks to her and to others that she works with, we remain safe today and are able to gather in a large group like this. I was asked to share a few aspects of my story for 15 minutes or so and then answer any questions, so it's my pleasure to do that. As John correctly said, it was while I was running SiriusXM that our youngest daughter came down with an illness called pulmonary arterial hypertension. About 70% of the people that it affects are women, about 30% men. Usually affects people in their 20s, but it can affect little kids and it can affect older people as well. I had last studied biology or any life science in high school, so I knew a lot about satellite communications engineering, but I didn't know anything about medicine or biology. And I was sure that there had to be some medical treatment for our daughter. I'm sure most of you have had the experience that if you or a family member gets a diagnosis, like you're sure that there's, okay, some medical course to follow. But we were over at Children's National Medical Center on Michigan Avenue in DC, and Dr. Roger Reckman, who was the head of pediatric cardiology, told us there's no treatment for your daughter. It's a rare disease. I've only seen a handful of patients in my 20 years as a pediatric cardiologist, and they've all died within 2 to 3 years. So, of course, Bina and I, we cried a lot. We couldn't believe this. This was our fourth and youngest child. We asked, wasn't there any hope that could be done? And Dr. Ruckman said the only possibility was a lung transplant, and that when people with this illness, pulmonary hypertension, had a lung transplant, it did not come back, so it was like a cure. He said, however, there are very few lungs available for transplantation, and less than 10% of patients with pulmonary hypertension, in fact, get saved with a lung transplant. And he said that all of that was much, much worse for a little kid, because then you had to have like a little kid-sized lung, of which he said, he would enroll us in the lung transplant process, but not to hold out any hope. So John was pretty accurate. I'm no different person than anybody else, and I really didn't know what to do. I had read in newspapers and seen on TV that people could try to raise money to get more research for a disease. So I found out that there were only 20 doctors who treated patients with this illness throughout the whole US. That's how rare it was. No doctors wanted to even go into this field because all the patients died. It was like a super depressing field. And so I wrote a proposal, kind of like I would write a satellite proposal for a satellite manufacturer to design a satellite to do different things. I wrote a proposal like that for a doctor, or what we call a physician investigator, people who are both doctors and also scientists at the same time, to develop a medicine that could keep our daughter and other people with pulmonary hypertension alive. And we said that we would fund their research. And at that time, we took Genesis on a trip. We asked all of them to send us 3 copies of their proposal, to include a copy of any articles or research that they were relying upon, and to explain it in language of like the level of New York Times or Scientific American, so I could really understand, what they were proposing, and to give me a timeline that would show that there would be a treatment we could give our daughter within 3 years. So, and we then took Genesis on a long vacation trip, which we thought might be her last trip. And in fact, she was on oxygen for that trip. And it's, people would stare at her and she'd feel bad, the little kid on oxygen. It's a weird thing. So we come back from this long family vacation, and we open up the door to the house, and the housekeeper had put like the mail in and whatnot. And this first bedroom that we had was actually filled halfway to the top of the wall with cardboard boxes full of 3-ring binders of these doctors' proposals. And it was like tremendously exciting for me and motivating. It's like almost all 20 of these doctors had proposed that they could work on a cure, that they had different ideas for a cure. They, all of them wanted something like in the range of $200,000 or so a year. And they gave little timelines for 3 years that showed that they would do some animal studies and maybe have something for a person within 3 years. So I just stayed up day and night reading all of these proposals, and because they were written in a language I could kind of understand, and they had attachments of all of their scientific articles, I was able to get deeper and deeper and just become kind of an expert in this field, even though I had no background in this field. I asked Dr. Ruckman from Children's National Medical Center to help me review these proposals, so I gave him a copy. And I asked our family doctor, that was like the extent of my network, to help me review these proposals. And after they all reviewed them, they said, well, basically like 75% of them are people just really trying to get research. What they're proposing is not realistic. You're not going to get anything in 3 years. But the other ones are, maybe possibly there might be an idea there that they could give you something in time for Genesis. That's our daughter's name, Genesis. It's with a J, though. And so we went ahead and funded those doctors. During that next year, Genesis got worse. She began to collapse at school. The medical term is syncopic episodes. It means basically you faint. The reason this would happen is because when you have this disease of pulmonary arterial hypertension, blood cannot get from your heart to your lungs. And as a result, just the blood vessels between your heart and your lungs clamp down. All the rest of your blood vessels are normal, and nobody knows what's the cause of this disease. Even to this day, nobody knows. So we would rush her to the hospital. She'd be there for 2 weeks in intensive care. Bina, my partner, and I would tag team, so somebody would be at home with the other kids. We'd go back and forth. And she just kept getting worse and worse. I'd be calling these researchers, have you made any progress? Well, things are not going as fast as we thought they were. We've had some delays. At the end of a year, I'd ask each of them, how much closer are we? And they said, well, we're about 3 years out. I said, but that's how far you were like a year ago. One of the benefits of doing this research, and it's so important, you guys, to reach out and interact with people. I'm so happy all of you are here. People are the best reservoir of knowledge. It's not the internet, it's people. And one of the doctors that we funded, Dr. Robin Barst at Columbia Presbyterian in New York, she was the only pediatric pulmonary arterial hypertension cardiology expert. I mean, you could see like Like she would have like 2 patients, right? I mean, she had maybe like 40, but it was like so specialized. And I wouldn't have known about her but for this whole process, and we funded her grant. And when we went up there with Genesis for her medical exams every 3 months, and by the way, the only way you could check on the condition of this is you have to catheterize the patient. So imagine like a little 8-year-old kid getting a catheter stuck up their leg all the way into their heart. It's not pleasant. She said, Martine, I'm going to be very honest with you. And Dr. Bars was a great doctor. Unfortunately, she's passed away, but a very direct and blunt individual. She'll be very direct and honest with you. Everybody in our little field of pulmonary hypertension are grateful for your research funding. It's been really a breath of fresh air. We never were able to get any funding at all. But none of us are going to have a treatment in time for Genesis. And I was like, whoa, because I guess I was naive enough to think that they really were going to deliver on their proposals. I knew it wasn't a guarantee, but I thought like they would. And she said, however, just recently, a pharmaceutical company in North Carolina called the Burroughs Wellcome Company was acquired by GlaxoWellcome, a much bigger pharmaceutical company. And they were working on a treatment, and they have developed a molecule that could be useful to relax just the blood vessels between the heart and lung, leave all the other blood vessels alone. But when this big pharmaceutical company took them over, they decided to cancel that whole program because there were only 3,000 people in the whole US with pulmonary hypertension. It would be too small of a market. And the doctor who was working on it, the scientist who was working on it at Burroughs Wellcome, now GlaxoWellcome, was so upset that he just took early retirement. And she said, you could go and contact this doctor, and maybe the 2 of you could persuade GlaxoWellcome to get this molecule that's already been identified quickly into clinical trials in time to help Genesis. So I was like all the way down, crashed, and then I was like picked up with like some hope, So I made a beeline to North Carolina, Research Triangle Park. I talked to the scientist at GlaxoWellcome, and I met with Dr. Crow. Dr. Crow said, you're very well-meaning, Martine, and I wish you a lot of luck. But he gave me a quote I never forgot. He said, he was an older gentleman, and he remembered there was a commercial for a roach control thing called the Roach Motel, where they said like roaches go in, but they don't come out. He said pharmaceutical companies are like the Roach Motel. Drugs come in, but they don't go out. So I said, So I went and I explained my whole case, and I was just like shot down totally. They said, we don't out-license our molecules because it's possible that somebody might have a side effect from this molecule, and that molecule might be related to some other molecules that we're selling for big bucks, and we can't take that risk. Secondly, we wouldn't out-license our molecule to a little pulmonary hypertension cure foundation, which is how I was doing all this, because you're not competent to develop a medicine. It would be improper, unethical for us to just license this to a fly-by-night foundation. Furthermore, we know all about your track record and SiriusXM, but that has absolutely nothing to do with biology and medicine, and you don't have the qualifications to do this. And I said, I have Dr. Crow working with me, who used to work on this molecule. And they said, he's got kind of a bad name around here. He made a big fuss when we decided to cancel this, so no one's going to do him any favors either. So to make a long story short, that was the first of about 12 different no's that I got from GlaxoWellcome. And only by the rare thing that you would never expect, at about my 6th visit there, when they were really getting tired of me darkening the door, this scientist said, Martine, you've accomplished a lot. I had now formed a little biotech company. I had hired in 4 people. I got a Nobel Prize winner to be on my scientific advisory board. He said, you've built this up quite a bit. But what I want to tell you that happened since you saw me a month ago is my sister was diagnosed with pulmonary arterial hypertension, who lives in Oklahoma. And I went up to the CEO of GlaxoWellcome and I asked him, let's develop this medicine for pulmonary hypertension. My sister got this disease, and he told me no. And he said, there's nothing that I can do to help my sister, who is desperate for help, other than do my best to persuade everybody in this company to license the medicine to you and wish you the best of luck. So his name was Dr. Bob Bell, and he's one of my heroes, even though he told me no so many times. Even though it was just his sister's situation that got it going, he ultimately did help me persuade all the executives at GlaxoWellcome to license our medicine. When they licensed it to us, they thought so little of its prospects for success. They thought so little of our ability to do anything with this, that they licensed it for only $25,000, which to a pharmaceutical company is like nothing, and a promise that we would pay them 10% of any revenues we ever made, which probably their lawyers just stuck that in there, you know, just in case. Well, as John indicated to you, we did succeed and develop that medicine and get it approved by the FDA. We succeeded to get 4 other medicines approved for pulmonary hypertension from the FDA. Today, our daughter Genesis is 31 years old and works full-time in our pharmaceutical company. Thank you. Thank you. She's an absolutely amazing, lovely girl. She doesn't have to work. She says she wants to work. She wants to help everybody in our company develop more and better medicines for people with all sorts of rare diseases. I mean, she's just like, there's like one good thing I did in my life. I know people say I did more than one good thing, but I'd say if they did just one good thing in our life, it was Bina and I raising such an amazing daughter as Genesis. In addition to that, there are now 40,000 women, mostly women, but 40,000 people walking around the United States and other countries today with pulmonary hypertension, more than 10 times as many people as there were when we were started, because we have turned pulmonary hypertension from a death sentence into a chronic, long-term, manageable condition. As far as Dr. Bell goes and Dr. Crow, when our company turned 15 years old, I thought how appropriate, I always thought of our company, you know, in kind of a female gender. I thought how appropriate for our company to have a quinceañera at its 15th anniversary. So we kind of dressed it all in white bunting and whatnot. We had a fantastic Latin musician, Cucu Diamantes, perform. And at a quinceañera, you bring up sort of one person from each of the 15 years of your life who was really important in that year of the life. So, you know, for year one, I brought up my partner, Bina, because there would have been no Genesis and there would have been no pulmonary hypertension treatment or cure, and there would have been no happy, motivated Martine and no company if it wasn't for Bina. For the second year, we brought up Genesis on the stage because she, of course, was the motivation for the whole company. In the course of the evening, we brought up Dr. Crow. We brought up Dr. Ruckman, who first thought there was no hope. And we brought up Dr. Bell. And when I had called Dr. Bell a couple months before the quinceañera to ask him to come, I wanted so much to ask him about his sister, but I was just like biting my tongue because I'm a kind of positive person, and I was so afraid that he would say that she had passed away. And I said, Bob, I'm very happy to invite you and your family to come up to Silver Spring and celebrate this 15th birthday with us. And he said, could my sister and her son come from Oklahoma? And I just said, praise the Lord. I was so happy. I was so happy. I said, of course. And there at the quinceañera was Dr. Bell, his sister, her son. She was using our medicine, Remodulin, that kept her alive all these years. And it was just a absolutely wonderful event. So finally, you're probably wondering, like, well, what happened about the people at Glaxo Wellcome and what did they get for their $25,000 and 10% of revenues? So as John indicated, United Therapeutics is a very successful company. We're right here in Silver Spring, Maryland, and we love being part of the whole Beltway ecosystem. We have maintained a policy from the very beginnings of our company, literally day one, that we would never turn away any patient anywhere who could not afford to pay for our medicines. And we have never turned away any patient anywhere who couldn't pay. Before there was Obamacare, people used to have lifetime caps on their health insurance, and they would get up to that lifetime cap, and then they wouldn't be able to pay. We give them our medicine for free. Before there was, thank you. Before there was Obamacare, people had these things called pre-existing condition limitations, that if you had like a pre-existing condition, then you couldn't get health insurance from most health insurance companies. And all of those people with those pre-existing conditions, we gave them our medicine for free. Our top-selling medicine, Remodulin, we have not increased the price of that medicine, not even 1 penny for the past 5 years. And thank you. Wall Street people say to me, Martine, you could increase the price of your medicine. There's no limits in the United States on the price of medicine. I said, well, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. It's not the right thing to do, so we're not going to do it. So despite all of those policies, or maybe because of all of those policies in some kind of karmic sense and the goodwill that everybody has working together with us, are now 4 pulmonary hypertension approved medicines. And just last year, we got the first medicine ever approved by the FDA for neuroblastoma, which is another rare disease that affects young kids, horrible disease. It's the first one to actually allow half the people with the disease actually to survive and live normal, so it cures it. So despite all of those medicines today produce $1.5 billion a year in revenue. And Glaxo Wellcome, so they got like 10% of that, So they've admitted to me, I've seen them at healthcare conferences from Wall Street, and they said, this was the absolute best thing that we ever did, was licensing that medicine to you. So it just is an amazing story that I'm going to end on now. That's something that was locked away in a roach motel, at a big pharmaceutical company, was never going to see the light of day because of fears, fear they wouldn't make enough money, fear of it would hurt their other drugs, fear that this, transgendered satellite communications expert, would just fumble the ball or whatnot. Ended up being like the best business deal that they had ever done. Ended up allowing a football stadium full of people to be alive with pulmonary hypertension, whereas before they all would have just died within 2 to 3 years, and allowed Bina and I to live a beautiful life when we can gaze upon our wonderful youngest daughter and see that the love that we had for her in this great country, the United States of America, has allowed her to grow up to be a beautiful, shining adult. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Wow. Unstoppable? That should be your middle name.
Thank you.
What an amazing story. I am just sitting riveted, and the thought keeps going through my mind. Did you have to give yourself permission to be this powerful and unstoppable? Was there ever a moment where you had to grab that for yourself, or was it always there?
I really don't think it's about myself. Our company's mantra, which you could see right on our first page of our website in giant letters, is we go, not ego. And I don't know if it's because it's a woman-led company or what, but we really believe that everything we do is collaborative and collective with all of us working together. So I don't really believe that it's anything to do with like my power or anything. It's just a lot of really well-meaning people wanting to work together, work hard, nights and weekends that have allowed us to have this success. In fact, Genesis's job, she's in charge of all of the digital screens. We have offices in North Carolina, in Silver Spring, Maryland, even in China and Europe. So as CEO, I have to worry about how do I keep everybody like working toward the same goals and knowing what like the latest things are that we're doing. So that's her job, and she manages all these digital screens around the world from really a laptop, and she searches out motivational statements. So she's trying to get everybody motivated to do more than they think they can do. And one of her motivational screens, she has a picture of herself, and this quote is borrowed from Katharine Hepburn, but it says that there's no such thing as impossible. The very word contains the words, I'm possible. And there's the picture of Genesis, who's possible.
That's fantastic. Well, she's obviously carrying the baton on forward into the new generation. We have a lot of young women here, and men, forgive me, as we mentioned earlier, entering the field of STEM. What advice would you give to them?
I think STEM is like super, super important. I feel that I am not only a feminist, but maybe even more important, I'm a STEMinist. And a STEMinist is a person that believes fervently that women need to get into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We live in the absolute best of times for science. I mean, it's extraordinary. Within the past 10, 15 years, major dogmas of science have been reversed. Like it used to be said that, we start with a, embryonic cell, and then we have stem cells, and the stem cells differentiate into all types of particularized cells, endothelial cells, muscle cells, what have you. And that the dogma of biology was that things only went in that direction. You couldn't go back from a skin cell back to a stem cell. That's what people thought for as long as anybody knew anything about cells. Now, in our short little lifetimes, like within the past 10 years, it's been shown that that's wrong. You can take a skin cell and de-differentiate it all the way back to being a stem cell, and then you can redifferentiate it to be any one of 200 different types of cells. I mean, that's totally awesome. That's something that happened just in our own lifetime. And women are already, I think, naturally attuned to biology because our bodies are just much more kind of biological than men's bodies are. And I'm happy to see a higher percentage of women in the life sciences than I saw in aerospace and satellite communications. So STEM is our science to own. The 21st century is the century in which biology will be the technology. And so I really encourage all of you to wear on your lapel proudly, I'm a STEMinist.
I like that. Listening to you reminded me of Albert Einstein, who was very much of a scientist, and later in life really looked at science as the underpinning of his own spirituality and his own evolution. Not to get too new age, but share with us what your thoughts are about the connection of the two.
Sure. I believe life is amazing and astounding beyond anybody's comprehension. But of all of the incredible things in the world, cars, internet, refrigeration, you name it. We have a lot of technological miracles in our midst. I'm absolutely confident myself that there's no more amazing machine than just the human body, each person, and in particular, our human minds. And with these minds, we can make amazing works of art, music. We can figure out how to have 300 million people in the United States all living overwhelmingly peaceably together. How could anybody figure out something like that? 300 million different people all cooperating, knowing that, you stop at a red light and, don't keep going. And all the incredible things that we do. And it makes my soul cry when I see instances of women not getting an education, when I see instances of the boys in the family being allowed to meet with visitors and the girls of the family being like shuffled out of the room. When there are whole countries where women are basically treated like chattel, like property. And I think that Einstein probably was right when he said that he believes that there are only two things in the world that are infinite. And people have asked him, well, what are those two things, Dr. Einstein? He said, there's the universe and human stupidity. And he said he wasn't sure about the universe. So there is a lot of human brilliance to fortunately outweigh that stupidity. Otherwise, we would live in anarchy and chaos. So we do have an overwhelming amount of human brilliance. But we have to nurture and we have to build that. We have to extend that to every single person, everybody. And if we do that, we could finally quash down the stupidity and the ignorance and make a better world for everyone.
Well, you've certainly shown us how to do that. Thank you. What an absolute delight. Thank you so much.